Good morning, everyone. Back at it. So without further ado, let's get rolling. My name is Matt Simmons. I'm president of Simtech Solutions, and I am here today with some of my compadres and teammates here at Simtech. Just as a quick background, we've been doing the work of applying technology to the cause of ending and addressing the homelessness since 2002. So it's been a long go. We're going to go through, and I'll share a little bit of details about what that means in a second. Really, the overall focus of today's session is to be able to share some of the key details about where we are in the stage of the point in time count, and that's really the planning stage. Some people wait a while to do their homework, and some spread it out. And for those of you that are here, good job spreading it out. We do have some communities that will come to us in middle of January, and we can make it happen, but we don't love doing our homework due on Monday morning on a Sunday night kind of deal. So new for this year, I just throwing it out there. We do have a professional service agreement that should be familiar for those that worked with us in the past. That really explains that what we're going to provide, and it's not just the tech, but it's the services behind it. But new for this year, there's a couple new features within the last couple of years, but not everyone does the count every year. So if you didn't work with us last year, you'll see that there's now a point in time evaluation dashboard, as well as formal point in time reports. And then also we had a lot of feedback saying this is, this annual process, it's kind of a pain because we have to go to, get board approval and all this. So we did include a new 2-year option to renew inside the agreement. And so hopefully take some of the paperwork back and forth, requirement out of it. We'll dive into the tech and share some updates, and then share details of where we're going in some of the communities that we're working with to really be able to do a point in time count on any day of the year, not just that day at the end of January. Not saying you have to do all this work. I just preface that every day of the year. It's the idea of knowing who's homeless in your community at any point in time. Just doesn't want to intimidate people thinking they had to do this that often. So why? Most of you are familiar with the rationale why we're doing this. It's not just for HUD funding. I mean, we need to do it for that, for the COC. It's part of the NOFO competition, and it's a biannual requirement for the unsheltered. We also support shelter-based counts as well. And sometimes we downplay that. But for a lot of communities, when they don't have full HMIS participation, to have a tool to support the data capture for shelters is really important. And for those that do use HMIS, it's also a good way to check that HMIS is accurate. So you've got 2 data sources, you compare the 2. Do they jive? Cool. They don't, then we have to dig in. But really what we're using the data for is important. It's not just for HUD. It's, they use it for state funding. Oftentimes here in California, it's definitely a key part of that. Governor Newsom's actually probably just getting over a press release conference right now with Karen Bass about new HAP 5 funding for California, and they do use the PIT data to inform allocations. Which makes sense. You want to send the tax dollars to where the need is greatest. Part of what we can do differently than other tech, and definitely you can't do in paper, is geospatial reporting. And what that means is we can actually use the GPS-enabled survey data to show and demonstrate the extent of homelessness, not just at the COC level, but within individual regions within your COC. So we'll show a little bit more about that. And then for research purposes, the point in time count can be more than just the HUD questions. Most communities we work with look at community of origin and how long people have been homeless in their community too. so that's an avenue. Sometimes there's a particular funding stream that you're looking for. You might gather data for that. For gaps analysis, you might ask why people are homeless and what they could do to get out of homelessness. But you want to be mindful that the survey length, you don't want it to be too long. So you don't want people to get data entry fatigue from the person doing the surveying, and then just fatigue in general from the length of the question for the person being surveyed. So examples of the output. So kind of went to the final chapter of the story by sharing this right now. But working backwards from these dashboards, what do we need to capture? How do we need to capture it? So when we do go to portray the results, it's meaningful. So we do have updated national point in time dashboards. And then for communities, and that's using the HUD data that's published, I believe it's on HUD HDX, maybe I'm not positive on where we grab it from, but it's on HUD site. And we can publish that. We happen to use Tableau. And so we have free for everyone's usage for local planning purposes, national dashboards where you can look down and see the results for your community. And we'll throw the link to these in the chat. But for the communities that do work with us, you have the ability to have your own community specific version of the dashboards. And that will also include your fresh results, from the last count. So when you're ready to go tell the world, hey, we're done. We've had our data checked by HUD. And, this year was Apt Associates. And this is what we're going with. This is our final results. We can then take those and put them on your own version, a hosted version of a Tableau dashboard, to share with the world. And we also have formal point in time reports. The screenshot's a sample, of what we do. This, one of the communities we work with is Solano County. This is for, the idea is that you want to be able to give people the data in a way that is best suited for them. So some people want to geek out and drill down on different things. The dashboards really work well for that. And it's maybe kind of a little more of a summary, if you will. Whereas the comprehensive point in time report really does look, there's infographics that take the data jives between the dashboards and the report, but it provides narrative about, what we're seeing as far as increases and decreases, overall demographic characteristics, details about key target populations, so veterans, chronic, homeless people, youth. And then, there may be, depending on your community, a section for people living in vehicles. We're definitely seeing an uptick in that, especially some of the West Coast communities that we work with. And that's also like, what's the details on the volunteer recruitment strategies and how many volunteers we had, because that informs the quality of the results too. And then what kind of methodology was applied. And then, so basically formalizing everything, making it look pretty. We work with you on the final output. And then you have a formal report to go when for your community. And this is an optional feature that you can, if you wanted us to work with you on, we can do. So why Simtech? I think that before we even get into I think the high level is that we're a mission-driven for-profit that is purely focused on addressing homelessness with the applied use of technology. So counting us, the mobile app for the point in time count, was born out of necessity because we used to be the ones taking the paper and then having to rekey it into Excel spreadsheets and doing all the counting. That was awful. And we didn't want to repeat that exercise. So we built the first mobile app designed specifically for the point in time count 13 years ago. So HUD picked it up. They licensed it for a while, but because of the way fair housing law precludes them from hosting one giant database, just like why we don't have one big HMIS system in the community around the country. every community had to host the data on their own. And the technical setup for building up the regional command centers was too much of a lift. So we parted ways with HUD, but we got to build upon all that great work, their peer review, both on like the functionality needed, the security, and just did it do the thing it was supposed to do to capture what needed, and are we asking questions in the right way? So we got to basically it was a great opportunity to work with HUD, have our technology vetted, and we appreciate that opportunity. And now Symtec manages both the front end application, counting us, which is available from Google Play and the App Store, as well as the command centers that we can make available to everyone. So communities don't have to have that lift. We also have a data warehouse. So I developed the first HMIS data warehouse in the US. I used to be a finance guy that learned how to program, and helping on a buddy of mine that ran a shelter. Developed that was about to be shut down because it was over fire capacity from the fire department. The fire department was going to shut them down, but the board said you can't turn him away. And he asked if I could help. And so I built a data warehouse to ingest the information coming from his HMIS system and create the first prioritized by name list of people experiencing homelessness. And in doing so, we took the people that were high utilizers of the shelter and we got them into housing. And we were able to save the community about $10,000, just shy of $10,000 per person for putting them into housing versus keeping them homeless. And that was really the key pivotal moment that shifted Symtec from being both working on the banking and finances side to working on homelessness. And we haven't looked back. So that's just so you understand. And then one of the things for that prioritized by name list was missing was the data capture for people living on the streets. So, and that still happens now today. So if we're to create a true by name list of who's homeless, we need to have a full picture. And HMIS is traditionally a desktop solution, and it doesn't work well for people that do street outreach. So we developed a mobile app to support that data capture. So then we have the full longitudinal picture with the shelter world and the unsheltered world, bring them together. And that's how we have a comprehensive view, because we bring it back into the data warehouse to produce those lists. So, and then we've also authored key guidance for HUD. But now that we're vendors, because we, out of necessity, we needed to become one because there was filling gaps that other vendors haven't been able to do. So we understand the business rules. And then I'm not going to read all these to you, but there's reasons why you might want to go with us. But some of the key pieces is that we actually do have true offline capabilities. There are some other software that are out there don't. So they'll say that, it's basically runs on a browser on your phone. So when you lose internet connectivity, you're not going to be able to submit that survey. Ours uses local data storage. So if you're in an area, maybe you're out in the woods or you're in that subway tunnel, if you can't submit, you can save it. It actually still captures the GPS locations. And when you go back to an area where you can, it works, and it stays where it identifies the location where you were. Whereas other technology does not have that. So you'll have potentially gaps in your community, or it's going to misreport. We've seen instances of that, where when the person does go back to their couch where they have Wi-Fi, all the surveys look like they're coming from their living room. And then there's a whole void in the community of where they were. So again, 13 years for doing this work. So it definitely is a vetted technology. This is from last year. I believe we're over 400,000 surveys collected. But this gives you an idea of the snapshot of our coverage area. It's over 25% of the US. A lot of balance of state COCs. And then, some key functionality inside the tech that really is well suited for these larger communities, not just balance of state, but some of the bigger cities out there. We work with Portland, Alameda County, San Diego, where I am now. Texas balance of states on here. So it runs the gamut. You can see from the chat, the people that are on here. It's a really good smattering of coverage. One thing I do want to lean in on in the near future. The timeliness of the HUD data, getting everything back to figure out if homelessness is on the rise or on the decline, it's stale by the time we get it. So if now that we have what you consider a representative sample of homelessness across the country, both urban, rural, and all around the US. By working with researchers, we can be a bellwether for homelessness. And so I just wanted to share that that's a potential opportunity for us to collaborate and inform if we need to advocate for increased funding from the federal government or for state government, and ring an alarm before it's too late. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I want you to share this slide and you can screenshot it, whatever you want to do. Again, we'll share the slide deck. But there's a lot that right now that we're in the stage, from your perspective, this is all, things to consider. So it's how am I going to get this done? What's overall all these pieces? And so just wanted to share that we do have supports for each of these, and there's best practices that we've learned from working with different communities. We don't have it all figured out, none of us do, but if we take this on as a group project and share, it makes it a lot easier and it takes a lot of the weight off. So one of the things that you also get from working with us is the indirect relationships, sometimes direct, we can make referrals too, of other people that might have already solved for X. They figured the thing out. And going front to back, working with some of the bigger communities and really running their whole point in time count, not just the tech. We have had to answer for all of these. So we do have things to lean on. And one of the key aspects I want to share, we'll dig in on, is this new role that we're highlighting for jurisdictional leads. And with that too, it's really taking all of this work and saying, how can I share the workload so it's not overwhelming for any of us? And so it's part of it is what we provide for guidance, but it's also the roles and responsibilities that we articulate. And then we provide support for those jurisdictional leads so they know what's asked of them. And you really just kind of take the weight off of you and just spread the work around. So, and we'll dig in a little bit more on that in a minute. So key features of the tech. Again, you all can read. So, but it's a comprehensive solution. It's from the time you're trying to recruit volunteers to where you're going to send them, what questions you're going to ask, what you're going to do with the data that's gathered, how are you going to get the formal report out to HUD and get it in well in time for that deadline, and then how you're going to stand by the numbers, because it's going to go up or down. It's really rarely that it's exactly the same, and so you need to be able to defend your work, and so we need to defend our work in the sense that we're working on this together. So, do we have the business rules? Do we have effective coverage? And really, to break it down from front to back is the best way to be able to be fully transparent and say, hey, we did a kick-ass job on this. And we do this homework all year round. And so the numbers that we put in front of you, we're confident are accurate. So we have new functionality to share. I'll share some of this when we get into the different pieces, but it's iterative. We didn't build this 13 years ago and stop. The original tool was really just a surveying tool that could produce a report. And we've layered upon that because we want to be comprehensive. So then we added volunteer registration. Then we added account team management. It keeps evolving. Now we've got more as far as reporting analytics go, better data management controls. So messaging to your volunteers and your surveyors, just things that we could never do with the paper-based world with one person and a cell phone, waiting back at the deployment center for everyone to come home and give you their paper. It just lights out compared to that. And the other side of it too is on our side, we've got a team now And we had a team, but it was a small team, and now we've got more of a a group of people, like-minded people that have been doing this for years. And just kind of growing naturally that way. And, I think that's the other side too, is, with this functionality, it's a lot of it came from you. And so thank you for your feedback. For those that you'll see some of your footprint on the work. This is a new function for this year. I'm going right into the out, like this, sharing, because I know people are really curious about this. So all the data captured from the app goes into a command center. For those of you that worked with us in the past, you'll see now that we've got new grid functionality. So the top level where it says survey name, grade range, you can either use the filter icon in the top left to sort and filter your data, or you can use the grid bar on top to sort and filter your data. And you'll notice that as you do this, the number of responses changes. So if someone asks you, off the cuff for some random fact, how many, like there was what happened in the past with veteran status, for example, we used to ask, how many veterans do we have in the community? And then it was a separate question, how many people are male or female? And then, fast forward the next year, they're like, well, how many female veterans do we have? Well, you couldn't go back and ask, if you didn't capture it that way, you wouldn't be able to do it. But having the data in a command center allows you to query it in different ways. How many chronic female veterans do we have? You can answer that with that, even if it's not on the HUD point in time report is the point. So that's this new functionality we're excited about. And by the way, when you filter something, you can then open up the record and you can work with it too. So, and we are seeing more communities starting to use both this technology as well, their Show the Way app, to do what we're calling surges. It might be a different name for them, but Jacksonville is doing a veteran surge. Houston's doing a downtown surge. They're also doing a youth surge. And when I use the term surge, it's basically an elongated pit count for, typically for a target population, either geographic target population or it's youth or veterans or chronic. But then once you curate that list, you have an actionable list to work from, knowing not just the people in that group, but where the people are in that group. So then you can go back and do follow-on services. We're actually doing a waterways count. There's another thing in San Jose, another type of more of a surge. It's an elongated count activity to figure out how many people are living in the waterways of that community, because we want to be able to keep those waterways clean. In order to do that, you need to have a decommissioning strategy and a move-on strategy for those people. So just an applied usage of this kind of functionality. So this one, I don't know if Linnell's is on, but in the past, we've had instances where on the shelter-based surveys, where someone would choose the wrong provider and then do all their surveys. And in the past, it was one of those things like, oh, you got to redo it. Sorry. And it happened a couple of times. And so this is an example of, like, you build it and you think everyone's going to use it properly. And really what this is doing is allowing you to change the project afterwards, just in case they're misclassified without having to do any rekeying. So thank you, Linnell, for the recommendation, just sharing yet other functionality. And this is also a teaser for those of you that do have providers that either aren't using HMIS or aren't using it well. It's the shelter-based survey is a zero cost additional offering. There are a few free offerings in the agreement. A lot of people don't choose a disaster response option. I don't have a slide for that. We don't turn it on unless you need it. But if you need it, it allows us to rapidly fire up an activity and do that intake. So it doesn't cost anything. We won't turn it on. It won't be confusing. But if you do, then we've already have an agreement in place. And we have had to use it, unfortunately, for some communities because we are seeing obviously extreme weather events. So just throwing that out there as a zero cost offering. The family reunification survey is an option for that. We work with Miracle Messages. They're a nonprofit in San Francisco. So it's like one more question on the survey that says, do you have anyone in your life, friend or family you'd like to be reunited with? If the person says yes, then there's another survey that they would complete to capture details about that person. And then we try to facilitate a reunion if that other person wants to be reunited with. So it's a zero cost option versus permanent supportive housing that doesn't come with social supports. And it allows you to turn the point in time count into a little bit more of a let's get some things done while we're doing this exercise. So there's that. I've got a couple people in the waiting room. If you don't mind just letting those in. Joseph, TJ, whoever's on. Appreciated. So pre-count planning, where we're at now, we need to know where to send people and how many people to recruit. So, and how do we do that? So another option to use is a free known location survey. So we support what's called pre-count mode. We used to call it testing mode, but that didn't make sense for the known location survey because it's actually legit. And I'll show you what that means. So known location surveys, it's a one question survey. How many people do you believe are homeless in this location? And that data goes into the command center, and then these color-coded dots allow us to see what the concentration patterns are in your community. And we can use that information later on to figure out how many people we need to send where. So we can use this. So, these concentrations, we can define coverage areas for regions and count teams if you opt for that. And for some key communities that it is overkill for that. And what we try to do with our agreements is we try to right size the agreements in order to really to support your different budgets and needs. And so if you have a small community, you might not need this. All right, but just to know if you have a large community, there's a lot of moving parts. It is really helpful. So we can split the continuum of care into smaller regions. We use what's called shape files provided by HUD on defining your continuum of care. Oftentimes the subregions are either census tracts, can be cities or towns, but we're actually using census data and census tracts predominantly because that allows us later on to tie in the census data and compare it to the homeless data. And then you can look at population density. So the volunteer registration portal actually ties back to the region and team management if you choose that feature, because then the volunteers are serving. It's not always volunteers. We should start shifting the words of surveyor because some people are actually paid to do this work. Where you can actually let them choose which region they want to volunteer in. And we can customize this and get tools to support the customization that are newer for this year. So and everyone that if you do sign up for the volunteer registration portal, everyone that goes through this automatically has an account. If you don't, then we'll give you what's called a setup key. And that setup key, when they download the app, they'll put that key in, and that will tie all their data that they capture to your account activity. And so you can just see an example of what the form looks like here. So this is the management tools. So you can manage your own, just the landing page content, the content of the welcome email they get once they register. And we may be adding more to this in the near future, just to add even more controls, like the ability to upload your own logo potentially will be in there. So new for this year, now that HUD is allowing the point in time counts to not, if you're actually doing a survey-based approach, not just a blitz count, you have more leeway as far as capturing data over a longer period of time. And so while we still, recommend a kind of a blitz count and survey approach, you can go back to other areas or break it up. Say you've got a major interstate or natural divides in your community. You can do a north and a south. Like on Monday we'll do the north, and on Tuesday we'll do the south. And what was happening in the past is because it was all for one day, we'd say which region you want to participate in, they get assigned to that region. Well, now it's multiple days for some communities. When it was only choosing one, they'd have to unregister and then re-register. And that just, it kind of throws off all the data underneath, in the sense of like, wait, I thought this person was over here and all that. So now we support shifts. So, so thank you for those that worked around the lack of the ability to have shifts in the past. But now the new volunteer portal, we can turn or toggle on if you want to have shifts. We can toggle that feature on, and for Monday they can register for the south, and Tuesday they can register for the north if they want to do both. So, and that's particularly good for ongoing work of outreach staff. Use those people, like they know the community the best, and so if you can get their help all day long, and go for it. Do we have any questions in the chat, by the way? Just want to pause for that.
We're doing our best to answer.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
No, you're good. That's exactly it. We're answering through chat.
Okay, beautiful. Also, you have the option in the volunteer portal to ask the same demographic characteristics that we have of the volunteers and surveyors of the people that are being surveyed. So just you don't have to include that. But there's also some other questions that we tend to ask to help you build well-balanced count teams. Outreach experience. If you've done the count before, are you willing to provide to drive if we needed your help? Especially for those more spread out areas. So those are kind of baked in. And this is an example of how you might look at just not only volunteers in a community, but going towards the target, so you can set local quotas. And we can actually turn off a region from being able to volunteer in once that quota is reached. So we can use the known location data to inform what those quotas should be. And once you hit quota, hopefully they can help out in another area. And then again, we have racial disparity analysis to compare the demographics that we can do. You can actually have that data. You can download the survey information, and you can download the information from the people being surveyed, and you have that to compare it against. As far as getting volunteers, there's some sources up there. It's an exercise. We do have recruitment materials, both for social media and also print materials that you can provide, that you can download and use as templates. If people want to add to those, by all means. Like I know some people have a graphic design department, marketing department, and if you've got good material and you're willing to open it up to the world to share, we'll be glad to make that available and give you credit for that too. So yeah. And then as far as people with lived experience as guides, there's recent HUD webinar was about fair compensation with people with lived experience. And so we definitely recommend that. But make sure in your planning, in your budgeting, that if you're gonna do that, that you treat those people as paid consultants. And how you do that is really up to sometimes the community restrictions. You can 1099 them. Gift cards. We see people using gift cards as incentives, as long as they're fair and they're commensurate with the amount of time that's put in. So, but then there's also you can lean on existing staff whenever possible. We do have some communities that use it for the NOFO scoring. Did you participate in the point in time count? And it could be yes or no, but you can assign points to that. And so you're starting to really try to build this culture of using the data to inform the work and then bringing people together. And so it is an awesome experience to see, hundreds of people get together at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Monday and do something totally different with their time. And it's just it's the point in time count. If there was, beyond everything else, that moment is really, it's a good showing of support. And so, but, let's, use the resources you have. Colleges and universities, service learning departments, if they have them, AmeriCorps volunteers. But yeah, and actually a lot of corporations too have a corporate social responsibility budget that they can allocate. You might even get free swag that way. So as far as care kits and incentives too, so just be thoughtful when you're doing your recruiting, that sometimes it's also, it's not a bad time to say, and if you can donate something or your time, that'd be great. And we're also seeing more with downtown partnerships, where it's these big corporations realize that there's a financial impact to their businesses potentially by allowing homelessness to persist. So so it's worth tying into those as well if you have one. So as far as
Hey, Matt.
customizing surveys, yeah, go ahead.
Let's just quickly answer about integration, just because it's kind of
Sure.
a complicated
Yeah, you want to answer?
explanation.
You want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple different ways to integrate HMIS data. One of them is going to be kind of external from the app. We have a standard point in time results file exchange format. Basically, it's just a template that we have that we need, the aggregate counts from your HMI system, exported in, and then we take that and combine it with the same format from the command center that we produce. That's going to be your like broad catch-all. And then we also have our homeless data warehouse. And I can provide links in the response for more specifics for you to review. But that warehouse, is not just for doing APRs or SPMs or anything like that. It's really meant to be, again, a warehouse for homeless data, which includes integration support for any HMI system using the HMIS, the HUD CSV format. So we're able to take that and then import that into the command center if we are looking to integrate the data sets, I guess on the raw level, right? Like client by client. And then other points of consideration would be the use of our Show the Way mobile app. It's basically the sister or brother companion app to Counting Us, meant for street outreach for doing ongoing data collection, right? And that's what Matt was referencing earlier in regards to knowing, who are your people throughout the year versus just on a single day. But yeah, that's like a very quick explanation because I know we're running short on time. So I'm going to drop some links in the chat, but we, can support aggregate integration as well as client by client, and more details that we'll talk through specifics as needed.
Yeah, for sure. And that results file format is critical because that's we had to define that on our own. Just it's kind of like with the APR. It's the results file format that you upload into Sage. We defined our own format for the point in time count to allow for the data capture from different sources, shelters, systems coming from HMIS, shelter coming from Counting Us, DB providers, and then the unsheltered data as well can all be brought together, as well as data from safe parking and safe sleeping locations, which needs to be treated differently and not glommed together in with unsheltered, which is something that we do just to share. We can spend more time on that as well. But you can customize your surveys. I'm going to do rapid fire now is the time. We can produce print-friendly maps so people can have those to go along with the app. They will, if they have the region count team management, they can see it in the app itself where they're designated. But this is a little bit more. You can print it out. You can draw on it. You can whatever. This is just other examples of what these maps look like. This is a racial disparity analysis for the volunteers comparing to the people being surveyed. I want to spend some time on this. The jurisdictional lead role, if you're in a larger community, this is absolutely huge. It's something that whether you use our tech or not, I highly recommend it. What we saw in the past is we were working with some of the larger communities and they'd have one deadbeat community where they couldn't get any participation. And and then, so, participation, no volunteers means that there's a donut hole in the middle of the continuum of care. And then later on, they were like, well, why do our homeless figures go to, only look like we have 8 people? And the answer is because you didn't show up. So by having the local ownership of the process, not only do you spread out the work, but they have local data to inform their own numbers, to fight NIMBYism, to raise awareness. And you really can because like some of the larger continuums of care, what happens in the north of Texas is not going to be the same thing that happens in the southeast. And that same thing happens with communities like Alameda that we worked with to really help refine some of this Alameda County. What happens in Oakland is way different than what might happen in Piedmont or some other areas, smaller areas that might have a lot, be more affluent. So we really allow, and this also allows for the mayor of Oakland and the mayor of the different towns to have their own data. So it's not just like, well, maybe it's like 40% of the continuum of care. No, this is the data and the results for your community. But it's really, and we have roles and responsibilities, guidance, but it really just, again, it's just making this more of a community initiative. And that's what in reality, homelessness is a result of system failure and community failure and lack of social supports. You can get into it and the lack of housing for sure, but we need to be able to elevate those discussions with local data. So on the communication tools, we do support one-way messaging from the command center back to volunteers or surveyors. So that's new. We use an integration service called Twilio. So you're not sharing your own personal phone number with thousands of different people, but it allows for that data that if you need to say, hey, Joe, you're wandering, come back to town, you can do that. Or you didn't answer a certain question on that last survey. Can you tell me what that was? Whatever it might be. So this is an example of region and tract coverage. So we can use the regions and tracts to designate and create those coverage maps. And then, again, trying to localize the count and then also support count teams within those regions. So I'm not going to belabor this part because we are short on time. Then once those regions are created, you can assign people to those regions. So, and again, based on the data captured from the volunteer registration portal, you can create well-balanced count teams from that information. So we're adding people to a region, and then from there, they can be added to a team. And the regions have regional leads, jurisdictional leads, that can then monitor the incoming data, work with building their own teams. They know their geographies, they know where to send people, use the known location data that was captured to figure out how many people to send where. Again, all things we can provide guidance on. So this is an example of what, creating a regional administrator, defining your teams, and then once the teams are defined, when they download the app, they know where to go, what to expect, and we can actually put messaging inside, and then they can actually message the team leader, through a call or an email or a text. A lot of communities come to us and say, hey, do you do youth counts too, or can we do it at the same time? We don't recommend doing it at the same exact time. You're still capturing information about youth, but a youth count itself tends to be a separate count exercise. It's an expanded definition of homelessness. There's other questions you would ask of youth. So I'd really advocate for a separate exercise. Inside the agreement, you'll see a separate count activity. And so if you want to do a youth count, we do have a survey template that we use that's built off of, originally it was the Voice of the Youth Count from Chapin Hall, and then we layered on it with input from like Houston's Youth Advisory Board, Kansas City, different communities that have youth advisory boards, and their input to really help refine the survey instrument. And you also get 2 NOFO points for doing a youth count. So, and then for anyone that either is getting YHDP or wants to get YHDP, it's good to know where you're starting from so you can measure progress. And then, as Kevin was mentioning, this is an example of the warehouse. I wanted to share that, the sister brother app, Show the Way, plus HMIS. Ultimately, we're moving towards this idea of knowing who's homeless at any part of at any point in time, in any community within your continuum of care. And that's just through better data capture. But you have to start asking and interacting with the people, especially those on the streets. And it going down to the very smallest transaction of handing out someone a bottle of water, even just to eventually I saw the person, I gave them a fist bump, a hug, or whatever, because we're still documenting their homeless history. And that homeless history, when you pull it all together with that transactional data, is really going to help us inform, the decision of like who is actively homeless, where they are, where they can be found. I need to provide care to that person. Where can I find them? Where do they tend to hang out? So, and actually the newer version of these binding lists really have the inflows and outflows nailed down. So, and it's, that was a lot of the work was done in the pilot with Community Solutions. If you're interested in this, we can share more details. Just reach out to us. My email is matt@syntechsolutions.com. We're not that big that you can't reach us. It's another thing to share. But it just gives you an idea of how comprehensive our work is. So that's the high level. I think we should have some time for Q&A. I don't think we have time for a full demo, but if you want a demo of all the tech, the app from front to back, please let us know. But the focus today was on the planning considerations, and then just to kind of give an overview, and then to leave time for y'all in case you had questions. So if we really want to do a quick demo, we can, but I just wanted to pause.
Matt, I think it would be beneficial. We've had some folks asking for a youth count. Would it be a separate count? Would it be adding a survey that being custom questions? So yeah, if you just want to speak to that.
So typically we do a separate count activity. And the questions are different. So it's things like, involvement with foster care and sexual orientation and barriers and challenges, and finding out if there's gaps in the community as far as what resources are available. Maybe they're not well suited for youth. The McKinney-Vento definition too, just that, including doubled up population, that alone give a different universe. Once you start saying, okay, well, this is homeless as far as HUD's concerned, this is homeless as far as McKinney-Vento, it just becomes nuanced enough that it's confusing. So to try to do them at the same time, it can be tricky because some people don't know, like, which survey do I use? Am I doing this for the HUD point in time count? Or just for the youth count. So we do recommend, we have done them together, and we do still see communities that do them together, and we can support that. And we can do conditional logic as well. So if youth then keep asking these additional questions, it's just being sensitive to making sure we nail the HUD point in time count.
As far as cost goes, it's not like it's double the cost. It's an additional add-on for your base contract.
And it should be in section 4.1 of the agreement. It's sad that I have the agreements memorized, but it's under separate count activity. So if you don't have an agreement and you would like one to see what the pricing would be, you can just email PIT@syntechsolutions.com. And that's the easiest way. And we'll get back to you in the agreement. Just tell us what continuum of care you are. The agreements, just so everyone knows, we use the HUD annual renewal demand, and then as well as the unsheltered data from prior counts as far as how we create our pricing strategy, so that we're trying to right size. Like, we're not going to charge a town you've never heard of. You've heard it because if you're from there, obviously, but some smaller town, the same as we charge like a large city. So, it's not per user. It's really based on that, because we also don't want to restrict the number of users. If you really have great coverage, just go for it. We don't want to say, no, you reached your cap. So that's the pricing.
Actually, the opposite, right? We definitely encourage as many volunteers as possible. Obviously with adequate training and all of that, but more is definitely better. But yeah, there's just a few minutes left. I guess I do want to solicit feedback from anybody. We've worked together, for some of you on here, for many years at this point. And, shout out to Linnell for her more than patience on getting that one feature out. Wanted to call out like the ability for us to change and transfer data from one survey to another survey. That's been a sticking point, we've had in our tech for many years now. It's not something we like when we, have people re-enter surveys. So just know we are trying to look at, evaluating how to pull that off. And again, just if there's any other feedback from people that, have been using us for years, I'd welcome that at this time. And yeah, just any other questions, right? We can show stuff in the last 5
I'm
minutes.
showing while you're talking,
Yeah.
so people can.
But yeah, if not, we'll just continue going over the survey. So here, Matt's going over the conditional logic. We do suggest our surveys are kept, as short as possible. It's not just about survey fatigue. It's about, being specific with what we're trying to capture and being intentional with the data thereafter. But yeah, you'll see that we require age. That's going to be something that helps us with our, ensuring we have our data elements all captured according to your age, veteran status, for example. You can see you can calculate age based off of your date of birth. You can also add an age range for anonymity. Here's your homeless history questions, so on and so forth.
This is the chronic definition, like how we calculate that. So you're not just asking, are you chronically homeless? We're breaking it down. These are community-based research questions that are part of a default survey instrument. If you don't want them, you can take them out. The HUD questions we need, so you can change some of the wording if you don't like it's how it's worded, but the underlying data that's captured, we need it to, in order to generate the report. It's worth noting that too, while I'm doing the demo, I'm going to share that we do support what's called geographic sampling enumeration, which is basically, it's an optional feature where you don't have to canvass your whole community. You can just go to the hotspots, the high probability areas, in a random sample of low probability areas, and then we can actually derive a count estimate from that. If you're interested in that, it's enough to geek out about that. We could do a whole session, so just reach out to us. But if you've got a large community and you don't think you might have enough volunteers, if you want, or if you've been doing it in the past and you don't really feel like you have great coverage, think of that as an option. This is the family unification survey I mentioned before. I keep right clicking on this. I'm showing it in a desktop view, so it's fully responsive design. But on the Chrome, if you're doing training, I think it's a function F12. It resizes it to this. So if you're doing your own training, you can do this. I'm in, the demo account. If you're going to download the app, you use the setup key of demo, DEMO, and you can mess around just like I am. If you're already a client, we'll get you in pre-count mode. You can submit surveys all day long, and we actually use that as a way to make sure people are trained. If they can submit a survey, then they can download the app. They can follow along and you'll see it and you'll be like, okay, you're good. That literally can be your training. And it shouldn't be like such a monumental thing for them to figure out. If they can do it, they can do it. And so back to the, as far as like, say I didn't have internet connection, I could hit save draft, or I try to submit, it tells me I can't. I do have internet, so that wouldn't work. So pretend that I don't want to have internet. It would prompt me to save it as a draft. And then I go in here and I can actually go and I can cruise my save drafts, find the one I'm working with, open it. Sometimes I do this too. Like when I interview someone, I know after a while there's patterning on the questions. There are times I'll put my phone in my pocket, I'll hit save, put my phone in my pocket and ask the tough questions at the end, and really be intentional about making eye contact and getting to on their level, and knowing it's difficult and not just sitting there typing some of the questions about disabling conditions and domestic violence experience. And that goes back to the use of Show It Away. Trained outreach are really good at asking those questions and know how to ask them. A lot of people, it's uncomfortable and they haven't built up that rapport. So, by using the other app, you're allowing for a progressive engagement approach to happen over time as you build up that relationship. And then we can just pull the data in and free up the volunteers from having to ask those tough questions.
Yeah. Just wanted to quickly shout out that you can go to demo.pointtime.info. I put the link in the chat. You can go through the volunteer registration there to see how that works. And that gets you added to the demo account whenever you get into counting us on the web version or on your phone. And I also just wanted to shout out that we did move forward on copying forward all of your count activities from the prior year. So, we're just trying to build as much runway as we can. So, we're looking to work together this year. Let's get that process going with or without an agreement. We're just trying to make sure we have enough time to get your volunteer registration up and running, customized and configured and all that stuff. But yeah, that's all for me.
I'm sorry. I just realized that my video might have been off this whole time, and my apologies for doing it if that's the case.
I don't know. See.
Okay. So anyway, that demo data that I just submitted, you'll see it. Everything comes in real time. So this is an example of what you would see. And then so the responses of what I just submitted will show up on a map view, or I mean, this is across the country, could be people using it from across the country. But as far as that's the record I just submitted. And I can manage that. And so I want to change anything, I can change it. I can move it, I can assign tags. Tags are a way to categorize the data. Maybe you want data quality follow-up, maybe it's for a veterans initiative and you want to be able to quickly filter, whatever it might be. And then you can save it, or I can also archive it, or I can delete it. Or actually, this is a system admin function, sorry. But you archive it and it makes it disappear from your report. And everything that you do goes into a report. You can just click and say, all right, give me the report.
Hey man, so we're at time, and just for everyone on the call, obviously your time is important, so feel free to jump, but we'll be on here. We don't have anywhere to go right now for another meeting, so feel free to stick around. Yeah, thank you all so much.
Yeah, and please reach out if you have any questions. Again, pitt@simtechsolutions.com, matt@simtechsolutions.com. And for those of you that are coming back for more, thanks for your support. We look forward to working with you. And those of you new, reach out for questions. You want to talk to some of the peers, we can put you in contact. We don't really have any communities that we can't refer you to. So that's good news.
Yeah, Madeline is bringing up a great point about family surveys. I really love this, feedback and this, person-centered design. So we'll take a look at ways to pull this off. Off the top of my head, I don't have an answer though, but it definitely makes a lot of sense to go through one question at a time rather than, repeat the whole survey. So I appreciate that. And then Marianne saying about signing up for a specific demo. I think we'll send a follow-up. So we can have a separate dedicated webinar, which is really just going to be more hands-on, going through stuff live. So you can sign up for that. And then just shoot us any questions that you have in the meantime. We have a lot of different support links on our website that might give you an idea of the tech as well. Matt, do you have an idea of when we may do that other call?
The next webinar, I'm sorry?
Yeah, like the live demo stuff. Some more hands-on.
We could do personal ones anytime. So Pro Service can hook those up. And then we're going to have another broader webinar in most likely the second week of December. We have more people on board and really kind of get roll up the sleeves on that piece, and then also share some of the updates. And we'll look to have one in December and one in January and one in February. So and we're going to be moving through the stages as we go. This is kind of an overview with a little bit more of a focus on planning. And then we're gonna get a little bit more tighter, the next time about volunteer allocations, gift cards and incentives, some of those planning logistics, volunteer recruitment materials. We'll spend more time on that. And then, as you get closer, it's more providing comfort that everything's going. If you have questions about your setups, and then afterwards, it's the post-count evaluation, getting the report gathered and submitted on. Sounds good. All right, y'all. You have our information if you need us. All right. Appreciate you.